HIPcast is brought to you by Enterprise Social Record.
Today, Seth and I are meeting someone new. Besides an exchange of some LinkedIn messages and some emails, we have never met our guests. So today is our first time actually all being connected, kind of in person, I guess, the way it's virtual, of course, but it seems that's how we do in person these days most of the time. So we're bringing Patrick Kennedy to you. Patrick is a longtime health information professional, and he's going to tell us about his journey, but he's also going to tell us about transitioning from health informatics roles into something new, and kind of an interesting story about how he really started his something new before he ever left. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Seth, for having me. Looking forward to having a conversation today.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun thing. So our HIPcast show has traditionally highlighted HI professionals from around the country and around the world. We've had folks from all over. So excited to highlight somebody else over in the Carolinas. So you're on the other side of the mountains. I will never admit this, but I will say it, that when I drive over the mountain, I live in the Tri-Cities area of Tennessee. So when I'm like 45 minutes north of Asheville. I love East Tennessee. But when I drive into Western North Carolina, the mountains over there I think they're prettier than the East Tennessee side. And I hate to say that out loud, but
it is something different. It is something
they are
different.
Pretty.
Yeah.
It is one of those things. But this show isn't about the mountains, even though we like to talk about the mountains. But maybe that'll be another show that we produce as something
There you go. But, there you go.
So let's start off. We enjoy asking folks about their HI journey. Tell us how you found the profession. I'm sure you were a little boy one day going, you know what, medical records seems really cool, and that's going to be my future. But tell us about that journey. How did you find it? How did you progress through it? And tell us sort of about your full career journey.
Yeah, well, it is spot on, Seth. It is definitely not something that I saw as a young kid or a teenager even, and thought, oh yeah, I want to be in health information management. So when you're kind of headed toward what do I want to do, what do I want to be, if you're going to college, 4-year university or community college, whatever, you probably, most kids have an idea of generally what they want to get into. Mine, going into college, and I went to East Carolina University. Going into college, I thought I was going to do sports medicine. I was a big sports person. I enjoyed healthcare because in high school I did a allied health professions course, and so I got some exposure to the hospital system, clinics, things like that. Never did I really see the medical record, what it was called at the time before HIM came around. I never really saw that in my experiences in high school. And so going into college, I was doing the basic courses, and I remember I was doing a basic chemistry class in my freshman year in college, and I did not do well. Yeah. I kind of struggled with the chemistry, and I thought, maybe this sports medicine thing is not for me. And I remember standing on campus one day, and I was flipping through the course catalog at ECU. And that was at the time where there was an actual course catalog, right? All the courses and descriptions were in a book. There was nothing online. And I was flipping through, and I got to the allied health section, which my experience in high school in allied health courses there kind of led me to looking at that in this ECU course catalog. And I came across health information management in the catalog. And they had, the advisor at the time was Paul Bell. Hopefully HIM professionals out there, especially in North Carolina, know the name Paul Bell. Been around for years, but his name was associated to it. I reached out to Paul, started having a conversation about, well, what is HIM? What does it mean? Because as I was looking through the course catalog, the courses that were required for the program, they resonated, right? There was some clinical aspect to it from an anatomy standpoint. You had to go through anatomy. There was also kind of the business and technology courses associated to it. I thought this seems pretty interesting. And so that led me to a conversation with Paul. And I guess as the story goes, the rest is history. I applied for the HIM program at ECU and then got into the program. And, reflecting back, it was one of the best decisions, even for an 18-year-old to make, to get into the HIM field. It really built for me a very strong foundation in understanding how the healthcare system operates across the board globally, not just the technical aspects or the management aspects of health information, but just a fundamental, basic, at the ground level understanding of how the healthcare system works. And that was, it really set me off on a great path of where I was headed next in my career.
Well, I always hear ECU and my mind goes to immediately, not Paul, but it goes to Bee's Barbecue, which is a barbecue joint out there.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Most people that are in that region know Bee's Barbecue.
And you've got to know what you're looking for with Bee's, because if you drive by it, you will not think this is a place I want to eat barbecue.
No, it looks like something out of a zombie movie.
It sounds like Dreamland in Tuscaloosa.
Dreamland's gone too commercial for me.
Bee's is still the original. The
original.
It's a little block building. It's
the original.
Definitely not something that you would. And it's right in the middle of a residential. I'm sure there weren't any zoning laws at the time that they decided to put a restaurant there, but because it's been around for a long time. But yeah, it's not in a place that you would think, hey, that's the place we should stop and eat.
Yeah, I also like the fact that you call out the course catalog being back in paper, awesome. And I remember going to my advisor because I was sitting in a financial class at UT Knoxville, and there's 200 something people in there, and I'm like, we're all going to be fighting for the same cubicle. I was working at a hospital, but I wasn't in a hospital track, and I went to the advisor, and I remember getting handed that book and saying, "Have you looked at health information?" And I was like, I didn't know it existed. So that's a fascinating thing. Similar pathways in that sense. Yeah. So let's continue down the journey path of, all right, we finished school. So what was your first job? That's we have a lot of students that listen to this, and our struggle is a lot of students think, well, I'm going to be the VP of blah, blah, blah as soon as I come out of school. But is it safe to assume you weren't the VP of whatever when you first came out of school?
If you're a betting man, bet on that. Yeah, absolutely. Bet on that. Yeah, I think, students that are not already in a career, so not working adults that are going back into the HIE or HIM field or studies, kind of my advice is temper your expectations, be realistic about your course. And your future, and take time to build it. Be intentional about building, yourself as a professional in your career from the very beginning. So yeah, safe to say I did not jump into a VP level position, as a 22, 23-year-old coming out of undergrad. And I also intentionally did not make the decision to go to a graduate degree. I wanted to get a little bit of experience first and figure out what is it I really, want to do, and how can I use a graduate degree, which is something I wanted, but how can I use that to set myself up for success, kind of down the road, and not jump into something that really may not have fit where I was going or what I was doing. Going back to your question though, what was my first job? How did I kind of start out? Even before I took my first job, and at the very end of my HIM program coursework at ECU, like other HIM programs, you have internships throughout that experience. And at the very end of that program, again, like many others, I had an internship, basically a full-time job, if you will, to finish out that degree in that program. I was very I was fortunate enough, long story short, I was fortunate enough to get a job out of that internship within that HIM department at that healthcare system. I don't know that happens all that frequently, but I say that and share that story to say and express the importance of, in your internships, take them very seriously. because the HIM profession, as you guys know, and others listening to this, it's pretty tight. It's pretty small. We know a lot of people, and if we don't know them, they can probably connect us. We're only probably 1 or 2 degrees away from everybody in the HIM profession. So take those internships very seriously. Treat it as a full-time job. Be open and willing to learning as much as you can within those experiences, because you never know, what might happen. So that was my first job coming out of undergrad, and the internship, which led to I was a Incomplete Records Supervisor within an HIM department within a healthcare system. And that was in the day where this healthcare system was probably more on the front edge of using electronic medical records. Nowhere sophisticated as we are today with a Cerner or an Epic, right? It was a pretty antiquated system when you look back at it. But there was still paper. There was quite a bit of paper, orders and other stuff. So Incomplete Records was a lot more of a manual process at the time than it is today within a system like Epic or Cerner or whatever. So it was a good experience. I was leading a team of 2 people within that HIM department and making sure that those records were had high integrity and all that documentation. T's were crossed, I's were dotted, so to speak.
It's a fun title. It's a blast from the past, the Incomplete Records Supervisor.
Yeah. Do those even exist today? Are they still?
They do. So they call them something else. They're probably analysts, but they still have the same challenges, and they still can't drop those claims until those records are complete. So they still have them. They just call them analysts, I think. Seth, what about you? What's your experience? You think they're just called analysts?
I don't know, probably, but it makes me go to the, we're in 2026, so you got to talk about AI, but it's like, it's a perfect example of AI is not going to take your job. So 1,000 years ago, you have an incomplete record supervisor that's primarily looking at the loose file and the medical record document and trying to make sure you got everything ready to close the chart up and send it for billing, for coding and then billing. That, like you say, the position exists today in a different form. Your position that you currently have today in 2026, in 20 years, will exist in a different form. So don't fear the technology. It's coming. Just know that you've got to adapt with the technology. I just took that on a totally different side road there, Shannan, that you probably weren't thinking about, but that's where my brain went.
No, that's pretty funny. I appreciate that you kept us out of legal trouble by saying AI, because I wasn't sure we were going to get to AI. So now we're safe for this episode.
You call out David Sachs in the administration that he should come on this podcast.
Right.
So I mean,
we'll just every throw time his name out there. It's like Beetlejuice. If we say it enough, he'll show up, right?
There you go. Yep.
So, Patrick, you went from, was this in the same health system where you eventually became the compliance officer?
Yes, that was my first foray into compliance. There were a few things in between that Incomplete Records Supervisor and getting to compliance. That was in the day where denials, from third-party payers, commercial payers were happening, but it's not at the level it is today. The hospital system was experiencing from some denials from third-party payers. They didn't really have the infrastructure at the time to help patient access, registration, staff members, mid-revenue cycle and back-end revenue cycle like billing and collections. You really didn't have a good connecting point, if you will, for all of those to make sure that everything was happening as efficiently as possible, so that once the documentation, charges, everything kind of flowed down to the record and to the bill, everything was clean. There was a lot of back end rework having to happen. And how I got into that from the HIM position, I go back to what I said about the internship. Even though my job was being an Incomplete Record Supervisor, I was able to put myself in positions to learn other things about the health system, to learn revenue cycle, to learn about revenue integrity and billing and the front end patient access and registration scheduling. And I give credit to the leaders that I had at that time, my direct supervisor, but also others in the healthcare system. They were willing to kind of take me under their wing because I was willing to learn and grow and expand my knowledge and understanding. And so that from HIM record supervisor was transitioning into a PFS role where I was overseeing denials management and coordinating third-party audits from payers. Government audits hadn't really kind of started hot and heavy like they are today, but that was coming. And so there's a little bit of foresight there. So I jumped into the PFS denials management work, which again, kind of looking at HIM and building that foundation from an HIM standpoint was very instrumental in helping me navigate and be successful at that denials management work, because I saw kind of the full picture, right, of how the system worked, how the record, which is when you look at denials, that's what we're living with. That's what we've got, is that record. And it's got to be complete and thorough to be able to say, you denied incorrectly, or here's why we should have been paid, whatever the case may be. From the denials management aspect, that led to revenue integrity, where I got even more integrated with all of the aspects of revenue cycle, even more doing education and training on regulations. I wasn't quite yet to the compliance role, but I was doing education and training on the different aspects of patient access, mid-revenue cycle, billing, collections, again, to help to identify inefficiencies, waste, if you will, to make things better, make things smoother, smooth out that revenue cycle process, have a complete record as quickly as possible after the patient's encounter, getting paid as quickly and correctly as possible, which then led to compliance. That was in the day where compliance was a thing, but it typically was coupled with somebody else.
Yeah.
Whether that be an HIM director, risk, or quality. There were even some scenarios of finance leaders being, compliance officers are responsible for compliance, which we know today, the Office of Inspector General says is a no-no. You don't want somebody in finance like your CFO being your compliance officer.
It's a fox in the hen house.
Yeah, exactly. Thankfully, we had leadership at that organization that, and board leaders too, that saw the importance of compliance and said, we really need to have kind of this designated compliance officer. So the HIM experience, the denials management, PFS, revenue integrity, it just kind of naturally led to compliance in my experience, which, thinking about the HIM, I said earlier, right? I was flipping through that course catalog and I didn't know what HIM was at the time. Well, I didn't really know the formal aspect of compliance at the time. And so all those experiences led up to the point of then becoming compliance officer, which I spent, the better part of my 20 plus years in corporate in the compliance world. So it was a very successful venture for me.
Yeah, what I hear you saying there, so especially for the younger professionals or the students listening, what I hear you saying is make yourself available for some new thing. So you were the incomplete, supervisor. Then you were in PFS looking at revenue cycle, and you were, you're this, and it sounds like you did a lot of learning and then executing and then leading and then moving and just repeating that. Does that sound pretty true?
I think that's a great way to put it. And, you mentioned the learning aspect. I can remember, I think it was my senior year at ECU, and the program director at the time, and she also taught some of the courses, Dr. Elizabeth Lehman. She said in one of our classes one day, HIM, or being in a healthcare role, whether it's HIM or something else, and I think this kind of transcends HIM, but I'm using it here. It's about lifelong learning. You were always going to be in learning mode. Just because you've completed a degree doesn't mean your learning is over and finished. And that'll come into play maybe when we talk about this transition to leadership coaching too. But at the time, being a senior in college, I was just focused on I want to get that degree. I got to get that degree, right? I
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about always being in learning mode. But I think that's a very important point. You've got to always be in learning mode. And if you kind of take it to your job today, or the job you might have, it's if you want to grow, if you want to progress, if you want to advance, you got to do more than just your job, what you're responsible for in the organization. Be willing to step outside of that box. Be willing to step outside of your comfort zone and learn and build relationships, because that's what's going to help you advance down the road.
Yeah, it is absolutely learning always. But you did mention relationships, and Seth and I are very much about networking and volunteering to build those relationships. So tell us a little about how your health information experiences kind of shaped your professional career, and then just go ahead and lead into the exciting thing that you wrapped up as the additional task in your last role with the health information, where you were compliance but also coaching, and then how you decided to make the move to just say, okay, this is what I want to do full time. So how'd your health information experiences kind of shape your career in general?
Yeah. I've talked a little bit about these. I'll kind of, recap them a little bit here. I mentioned earlier that the HIM community, although it is, I think, relatively a small community, if you will, we know a lot of people, and we in our roles within healthcare systems or wherever, we have to collaborate with a lot of other disciplines in the healthcare delivery system, right? From finance and revenue cycle and PFS and physicians and nursing. I mean, the list could go on. So again, I kind of point to the fact that HIM really helped to broaden my perspectives, to build relationships with those other disciplines within the healthcare delivery system. That took collaboration, right? So to get things done that we need to do in HIM or compliance, or you could name others, you've got to have, the collaboration skills with other people to be able to be successful in advancing. So that really early on, I think, helped to shape my career and how I would go about things, even in the compliance world. Because compliance, just like HIM, it's about building positive relationships and collaborating to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing from a regulatory standpoint. Very similarly, kind of moving on, kind of down the line from compliance, the relationships piece comes back into play from a coaching standpoint. Leadership coaching and is all about relationships and partnerships. I look at coaching the clients that I have where I'm doing leadership coaching one-on-one with them, or whether in a team setting. It's all about the relationships that I have with that individual or with the team. And I'll kind of expand on that in a minute. To your question about doing coaching kind of at the end of my last corporate position in compliance, I had about 5 or 6 years ago now. It was toward the end of COVID era, if you will. I had an executive leader that was very willing to help me grow and expand my horizons. Again, I had those leaders early on. I had Paul Bell from an advisory standpoint early on. I had another leader that was willing to expand my perspectives and help me get into other areas, to expose myself, to continue to climb the ladder, so to speak, to help me continue to learn and grow in my career. I'll jump off a little bit here. For people listening, find those people that are mentors, can be mentors for you. Find those people that are willing to help you grow and learn in your careers. It has fundamentally helped me and changed my success, my ability to be successful throughout my career. You can't do it by yourself. Find those people that are willing to be mentors for you and lean on them. Talk to them, connect with them. Continue to build that relationship. So I'll kind of jump back to where we were. I had that executive leader within UNC Health, and he said, I really think you could benefit from having an executive leadership coach. And again, kind of like HIM and compliance, I was like, what is that? What does that mean? I've never heard of that, right? I always thought of coaching from a sports standpoint. So anyway, I was fortunate enough to get an executive coach back in, I think it was 2021. It's probably when we started that. That person is still my executive coach today.
That's awesome.
I still have that relationship with her, and she still continues to help me grow and gain new perspectives and think about things differently. She took the investment in me and said, I've been around the organization with you for about 6 or 7 years now. I really think you'd be a great leadership coach. And we have this coach training academy at UNC. Would you be interested? And like, again, okay, tell me more, right? Being curious, trying to learn and grow. Because it really resonated. I always enjoyed doing leadership development training. I always enjoyed, helping other people grow in their career. The later part of mine, right? I probably wouldn't have been very good at that early on, but later in my career, I kind of gained that passion for helping people learn and grow in their career and professionally and personally too. So anyway, that executive coach said, I really think you'd be a good coach. I got into the leadership coach training academy at UNC, completed that in August of 2023. And if anybody that knows anything about coach training programs, certified coach training programs, they're pretty intensive, pretty comprehensive. And so over the course of about 7 or 8 months, myself and the cohort I was in, about a dozen other people that were internal teammates at UNC, we completed almost 80 hours of training for being a leadership coach. And then on top of that, we have 10 hours of mentor coaching. So another coach who has been trained, my mentor coach is a master certified coach. So they have over 2,500 hours of coaching. That was my mentor coach. So we have to have 10 hours of mentor coach, and then we have to take a certification exam to show that we're competent, that we're proficient in being a leadership coach. So all those things, those 3 things, the training, the mentor coaching, and the exam all happened within about the last 2.5 years. Toward the end of my time at UNC Health, which was 2024, there was a leadership change. And I think this is another learning point for people out there. And that is, there's a lot to be said for being comfortable in your job. Nice pay, good people, mission-oriented organization. You enjoy the work.
Sure.
You're seeing a difference in what you're doing to help the organization move forward. You're helping patients, helping other colleagues. But a lot of times what can outweigh that is leadership. And it can make things pretty uncomfortable as a professional. And so I had completed that leadership coaching training, and I was really enjoying that. I was getting fulfillment in it. I was also coaching clients internally at UNC Health. I had about, I think about 8 or 10 clients internal to UNC that I coached during that about 2.5 years. And so it was really something that was calling me, finding that passion. And so toward the end of 2024, I was getting that little nudge, that little voice sitting on your shoulder, if you will, like, kind of pursue this. What's going on here? Like, this is just internal feeling, this internal emotion, positive emotion of, I'm really enjoying this. And I see that I'm making a difference in other people's lives, in their careers, in their professions, where they want to go in their careers. And so I took the leap of faith and kind of pushed the chips into the center of the table and said, I'm gonna do this. And jumped into creating my own business, which is Magnolia Coaching and Consulting. And inside that, what I'm really passionate about doing is helping the next generation of healthcare leaders to multiply their leadership impact. And I'm specific about healthcare because I've been there. I've used that experience. I've been in those seats. I went from that Incomplete Records Supervisor to an executive level director within a large healthcare system. And so I really want to be able to use those experiences to help people become more self-aware, become better leaders of themselves, and then ultimately being able to better lead their teams, their people. I kind of use the analogy of, I feel like I've climbed the corporate ladder. Now I want to help other people build their ladder.
That's good.
So remind me, what was the name of your coaching business as well? And go ahead, and what's the website if some folks are interested?
Yeah, so it's Magnolia Coaching and Consulting. There's a specific story behind Magnolia, which I've got a page on my website that explains that story. I use the magnolia tree as the symbol because southern magnolia trees are one of the most resilient trees out there. They can withstand hurricanes, tornadoes, high winds, whatever. My late father planted a sapling of a magnolia tree in the backyard of the house where I grew up, probably 25 years ago or something like that. And this thing was, maybe a couple feet tall. And today there's a picture on my website of the actual tree, but the tree is probably about 50 feet tall and probably 20 feet or so wide. It's just a massive tree. So there's a lot of symbolism with a magnolia tree and associating that to helping people grow in their leadership skills and abilities. The website, magnoliacoachingandconsulting.com.
Perfect. All right. Well, good. We'll put that in the show notes and descriptions as well. And so to turn it back towards the HI profession, how do you stay connected to the profession now that you're kind of in a not kind of a non-traditional role? You own your own company and you do leadership coaching. It's not the traditional incomplete record supervisor. So how do you stay connected to the profession?
Yeah, I have, again, looking back, I think that's staying connected to the HIM professionals that I have throughout the years has been just a strong aspect of my growth and helping me to get to where I am today. I still today have a relationship with Paul Bell, that advisor at ECU that I reached out to when I saw HIM in the course catalog. I still have a relationship with Paul today. But some things that I've done along the years, I am a member of the advisory board to the HIM program at East Carolina University. Nice. I've done that for the vast majority since I graduated from there. So 20 plus years I've been on that advisory board, which is not about me. That's a requirement of having an accredited HIM program, right? You've got to have an advisory board of community leaders to help guide the program. So a part of the advisory board, which is a volunteer position. I have done conference presentations, particularly within North Carolina, HIMA. Also done some virtual presentations for other component associations of HIM around the country. I've guest lectured for HIM classes at ECU. And continued to foster some of those relationships that are key to me, for me, with those individuals within the HIM field. So going back to relationships, maintaining those relationships, those mentors that can help, guide us, and then volunteering for other things like the advisory board, conference presentations. I even, when I was in a compliance role at UNC, every year I would take students, they're looking for internship spots, and sometimes internship spots can be hard to find and come across. So even in the compliance world, I was wanting to help HIM students see that there's something else. There are other things out there that HIM professionals are 100% qualified to do. Even later part of my career at UNC, or that position at UNC, I hired an HIM professional into an entry level job within the compliance department, because I know what HIM can do for people, and again, the basic foundation and understanding, not just of the medical record, but how the healthcare system works. So being involved in giving back, really, I would say, with the advisory board presentations and working with students in their internships.
That's awesome. We see a lot now today in this kind of technical space that we're in. We see a lot of health information professionals becoming more and more embedded in compliance or in data governance or even in product ownership from a technical standpoint. A lot of data steward type roles are being really bubbled up to the top of a lot of organizations, and that really can fall under compliance. It depends on the organization. It could fall under compliance. It could fall under IT. It could fall under health information. It's just really, but I love the way that you're framing this is very much. I learned all these different things about the domains and the foundations of the health information profession, and then I've been able to continuously learn even within those domains that you already had a degree in, and then expand your career, and then move into something that was not even on the periphery of health information, right? Going into that coaching, but everything that you learned in and then led and experienced in your career as a novice and then as an executive director at UNC were it's almost like I don't know how to explain this to people who have not been in the HIM profession, but it's almost like that being an HIM profession, even starting at the associate's level degree, gives you some kind of a superpower to understand the data and the flows of healthcare. Would you think? Do you think that's true?
Absolutely.
It's crazy, isn't it?
100%. It's like you can HIM professionals, like if you lift the hood of a car, right? You know how that engine works. You know how it runs, what it takes to run. So yeah, 100%. You're
that's a great
perfectly
analogy.
situated.
Lift the hood of a car and you can see the whole operations, in our case, the whole operations of a health information department in a hospital, right? You can see radiology's over here, med surg is here, the ED is here, health information's here, people come here for this and go there for that. It is definitely. And then what goes outside? What data comes into your into your organization, and then what data goes out, and then how that data, when it goes out, what's the expected return or response, right? So it does make it very interesting. So one last thing for you that we definitely didn't have on script, but you're so curious about things from this conversation. I can tell that you're curious about things. And I'm interested in, from the executive coaching position that you're in now, and where we are advancing in technology and healthcare. I mean, in the world in general, but specifically in healthcare, since that's really your domain that you're most committed to. Do you think your coaching will change to help leaders be almost like a dual-minded leader with, I need human capital and I need agents, right? I need AI agents. Do you think your coaching will help those folks evolve into recognizing the companionship of agentic AI plus human resources?
So I don't plan to, focus or probably even bring up the word AI in coaching, but what executive coaching can do for somebody is to broaden their horizons, is to get them thinking about alternative ways of operating, leading, thinking outside the box, right? And so whether it's AI or whether it's some other technology that we don't even have a word for right now, in 10 or 15 years, it's helping to broaden the perspective. So I used the analogy, and I actually use this with clients a lot. If you think about a racehorse, right, or a horse, they got blinders on because they want that horse to look straight ahead toward that finish line, run as hard and fast as they can, right? So with executive coaching, what I try to do is take those blinders off so that you can see in the periphery, you can see around you what's going on, whether the latest thing coming out or something that might be down the road or something that's in our rearview mirror that we might need to think about and revisit, right? So it's not specific to, AI per se or technology or anything like that, but it's just to help broaden the horizons, broaden perspectives, think outside the box, to be able to see everything around you that's going on so that you can be a very effective leader within your organizations.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, especially because the tool sets will change, but the person and their skill sets that they need to manage through those changes is where you can grow and learn. And this has been a fantastic conversation. I mean, it's definitely the thing that we have from an audience perspective goes from the student all the way up through the professional that is middle of their career to folks that are towards the end of their career. But mentorship and then seeking out coaching is incredibly important for all of us to do. So, Patrick, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for bringing your experience and what you're doing to us and to our audience. We appreciate you being on HIPcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my story and experiences. I appreciate you both.
Absolutely. Shannan, until next time, my friend.
See you next time, buddy.